This is the 8th one.
Oh, just the 8. I expected a lot more.
Yeah. Correct. Eight is a good number. So, but just to share, at the start, we were really, really no idea what to do.
I mean, has Inlet never hosted webinars before the circuit breaker?
Online, like such a scale, no. But the first one we held was early this year in February. So that time we were already like, okay, we know, this might be the new way forward. So we held the first one in February, and then we also had one in March. So along the way we learned. Yeah. Oh wait. So if we include the ones, then this will be the 10th.
Okay, maybe I can be the first one to introduce myself. So, hi everyone. My
Sure.
name is Pyrus. I'm currently a data analyst at a really great company called Gametize. So, the key takeaways that I want to get from this workshop will probably be learning more about what are the different use cases and also what are the case studies that Gametize have that might be useful for everyone here.
How do you like? Very curious. What's your favorite?
I'm sorry, Keith?
Can we have a camera turned on for you just to see?
Bad hair day.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea, Keith, but thank you for the suggestion.
It's all right. I haven't went for my haircut yet. So, same. Every day is bad hair day.
I've just been doing my own hair.
All right, nice. I cannot tell if you don't say. Anybody else would like to introduce yourselves, or if you would like to just type in the chat, no problem. Yeah, you can just share what you
We
do.
have one person doing e-learning development from SMRT Institute.
SMRT.
So, yeah, so just feel free to type in the chat. Let
Yep.
us know, what you're here for. Maybe it will help us also when we're doing the case studies to know what everyone's interested in.
Yeah. Or if you have any questions to ask Gametize, you can take this time to ask as well.
So I think I got intrigued by YC Lo. He is here because he did not believe in serious gaming. YC, the latest session will be focused on gamification, right? So I'm not sure whether are you looking to change your mind about serious gaming today. Our session is not going to help very much. Hopefully, it will make you change your mind about gamification if you have any. Just joking. But the truth is, we are not going to be talking about serious gaming today as well. And personally, I do not believe very much in serious gaming, not in the cost involved in serious gaming, right? But serious gaming is a very cool idea.
So since we're on this topic, just curious on my part, why do we put the word serious there?
Serious gaming has very serious budget. I think that's the reason why. That's why it's cost. I think most importantly, right? If you look at gaming, games are meant for entertainment, right? That's the primary objective of games. But serious games are not meant for entertainment, right? It is meant for there's a target objective, and there's also it feels very much like a game entirely. It's very immersive. However, it is for a business objective mostly. So I think example of serious gaming, a lot of Singapore males would have encountered that. We go through serious games a lot for our war gaming. We have actually this army warfare simulations on keyboards, and I think just before I ORD, I remember we were launching some kind of like a point to shoot game in the military, and that is also serious gaming, right? However, I think the biggest challenge with serious gaming is really the cost involved. Usually, I think you need to budget at least $1 million onwards for.
I see. Okay, that's serious.
very serious budget. Hello, Charles. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Charles is a very old friend of Gametize, right? He knew about Gametize a very long time ago.
All right. Yeah, we still have people streaming in.
So what about you, Qilin? What do you hope to take
So-
away from today?
Today's session, I'd like to find out how to apply gamification in the business concept. Maybe not the serious budget part. Maybe the fun part of it, like how do you make games to be it to engage internal audience, external audience, the examples so called. Yeah.
Have you? So obviously you have heard of Kahoot.
Yeah, it's part of our CEE suite, cost effective and easy to use at Tech Tools.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we have also spoken to some people who use Kahoot, and they use it so differently. So it's quite amazing. Yeah, it's the way you design it. So personally, I feel the tech is just there to help you, right? So it's more the concept, the design, the main objective you would like to attain using that tool. So the tool is like, for me, it's like an enabler. Yeah. Whereas what you have in mind, the concept, yeah, that would be the main driver.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Qilin, just a request.
Sure.
Maybe I do not need to be given co-host rights.
Okay.
Getting quite a lot of notification about people coming in.
Okay.
So
Sure.
yeah, thank
I
you.
have removed.
I just do not know how to mute that thing.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. I think that one can be switched off, but it's okay. I've already removed it.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Got it. Yeah, I took a look at Kahoot the other day, and I think it is it has grown a lot as well.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of people asking asking about comparing Gametize to Kahoot. Actually, they are two completely very different solutions. There are a lot of ways how actually we can embed the whole experience into Gametize. And I took a look at the website just yesterday, and it looks so different from 2 years ago. So and they have adapted very well to the COVID crisis. Suddenly, they are able to move a lot of their solutions over a conference call, right?
Yep.
It would be really cool if they can actually find a way to integrate with Zoom. But Zoom, as far as I understand today, they have not really opened up their APIs. But that would be a game changer. Imagine you can
Yeah.
actually just create a Kahoot game right
Yeah.
away.
Yep. Correct. But I've seen Zoom improve a lot over these few months. So like just now we mentioned we started experiencing online webinars since February. So within a short, now it's June, right? 4 months, we have seen like a few changes here and there, security portion, the waiting room things, like, yeah, within this short period, they have improved so much.
Yeah, super cool. Actually, even for Gametize, just yesterday I just got an update that we have also a lot of new features coming up. One of them is ability for players to form their own teams, right? That's a very new feature, right? So anyone can actually create their own team. They can choose which team they want to join. They have their own team inbox. These are all very new
Wow.
features.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Cool.
due to the crisis, actually, we are getting a lot more feedbacks from potential customers.
Yep. And I think all this feedback is very good because you then know what your audience needs. So I believe on the same page, like Zoom also did all these security measures and add-ons from the feedback. Yeah. So yeah, very good to listen to the users and even sometimes have a chat with them just to find out what they need.
Okay, I think we are ready to go. Whenever you're ready to go.
Wow, we have a fun fact by Fairuz. Okay, yes, I'm ready. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us early. Oh, we are 4 minutes over time. Okay, let me just begin the session. All right, so welcome everybody to today's session, the last of the series, session 3, where we share some game case studies or learner engagement using gamification. So we are very happy again to invite Gametize, Team Gametize, to share with us some case studies. And if you have received our email earlier today, you would be you would have seen some games already set up by the Team Gametize. So we hope you can join in with us. Today's session is quite interactive and quite fun as well. So quizzes along the way. So please pay attention. So let me just do some promotion of an event next week, next Friday. I believe some of you may have already signed up using captivating visuals, because you know, in an online webinar, it's very hard to engage your learners. You don't know what they are doing on the other end of the screen. So how do you use visuals to captivate their attention? So you haven't already. If you haven't already, you can sign up here using this link, this bit.ly link, or you can scan the QR code, or you can check out our Facebook page. Okay, so today's session, we have Keith and Prapim joining us, and also Ignatius. So I will now hand the mic over to Keith and Prapim and Ignatius. Over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen now, so just let me know if
Please.
you guys
Yeah,
can't.
I will just unshare it. Stop share. Okay.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, hi. So before I introduce myself or we do any introductions, I just wanted to let you guys know we've created a game today for you to follow along, so that there's pop quizzes, there's other random bonus challenges that you can use. So this was actually created using our own platform itself in the space of, I think I did this maybe for an hour last night. So it doesn't take very long, and you can kind of experience also how it is that we try to use our own tools during events such as this webinar. So how you can do it if you haven't already, I saw some of you have already started like downloading the app, playing it last night. You can either play by web or by app. So if you play by web, you can just go to this URL. I've also put it in the chat, so you can go to the chat and just copy and paste it straight from there. Feel free to register for an account or use guest login, and then just log in, play the webinar game. So during the session itself, we'll let you know like which parts we're going to be directing back to the game. So we will try to keep you, we won't, you're not lost essentially during the session. Or if you're using the app as well, just make sure to download the Gametize app. So it's on iOS or Android, and then register for an account, and then you can use the game code in Lab Gametize in the search bar, and then just enter the game itself. All right, so while you guys are doing that, I think that it's time for me and Keith to do an introduction. So welcome back if you were here for session 2 and 1, or welcome if you're here for the very first time. So I'll just introduce myself before I hand it to Keith for his introduction. So I'm Prapim. So I've been at Gametize for almost 3 years already. It'll be 3 in September. And I actually came on originally more as a kind of graphics designer, but I did have experience with e-learning content as well. And I joined partly because for me, I knew about gamification. I didn't really know exactly what it was. And I was kind of fascinated to try and, learn more about it as I worked in Gametize. And so during the time that I've been here, I've been helping with a lot of client projects, a lot of, improving our platform. And nowadays, I also help with the Academy, where I do things such as platform demos, walkthroughs. I try to consult people as well on, if they're having problems with their gamification strategy, then what's the best way for them to move forward. Yeah, so that's what I do. So fun fact about me, you can see loves Photoshop, Illustrator, and cat. Yeah, so I've actually kicked my cat out for this in case he comes in. Okay, so over to you, Keith.
Oh, thanks for the transition, Prapim. So I am one of the 3 co-founders in Gametize, and we started out about 11 years ago. Actually, I kind of lost track how many years it has been. Gametize is my first job, right? When I first came out, I was looking for the work that would suit my my personality as well as my motivation, and I realized that I could create my own job. So that's where I am. I'm a reformed compulsive gamer. I've shared about this a lot of times, right? I used to be someone that doesn't get out of my own room, right? I could go without sleep for many days just to play games. Today, the role has changed. My mom is not a compulsive gamer, right? She's the one that can do without sleep. She's Candy Crusher, 200 plus. level, right? She has now moved on to 4 other different games already. So the roles have changed, time has changed. I am the reformed compulsive gamer today. And I do not really have any formal game design training, but so my best credentials is that I have played a lot of the games in my lifetime. And I've also went through some accelerator program back in San Francisco. So there was this like a really short period of 3 months. We go through aggressive game design theories and training. And that's where a lot of our materials come from, right? Basically, whatever we are sharing with you over the last 2 sessions, right, are based on a lot of what I have learned during the 3 months. We started out actually creating different games for different purposes, so that we did not find the HR market by chance. The HR and L&D market found us, right, based on the market product fit. As of today, right, I'm happy to share that we have use cases in many different industries, from education, L&D, marketing, recruitment. Lately, I think we have people coming into us to try to gamify projects on recycling, environmental sustainability, and we also have individuals coming to us asking whether we could create games for mental wellness. Right? This is a great use case as well. So my fun fact would be that I could rotate my hands in different directions, right? Like I can show that to you. Everyone can try it on your own, right? Titi, maybe you can try this, right?
Okay,
so you can
yeah.
move your right hand forward, yeah, and then your left hand, move it backwards. So you can do that, right? So that would be my fun fact. I'm able to do this simultaneously, right? So that's a little bit of a brain exercise moment for all of you. So back to you, Krapi.
Okay, so I'll just outline what we're going to be doing for today. So it'll be a lot of case studies, but we also want to make sure that you guys are able to be engaged. It's not just a one-way engagement. So we're going to be playing along with the game. There's some pop quizzes to check your knowledge throughout. We're also going to do have a break in between, maybe about 4-ish. Then that's when we're going to do the 5D framework refresher activity. I think that some of you already know what the 5D framework is if you've been with us for the last 2 sessions. If not, no worries. We will also give you background during the break. Then we'll continue with the case studies, and then we'll try to break around 4:45, 4:50 for the Q&As, so we have a chance to answer any questions you have about what we're covering today. Okay, so I'll just go through what we are very quickly. So we are a gamification technology solution. So you'll see as you're playing the game, the in-lab Gametize projects, that we have a lot of different types of contents for you to do. So things such as quizzes, predictions, even scanning QR codes, and then you're able to, get points, rack up achievements, and then kind of compete on the leaderboard. So these are all game elements. So there's the definition of gamification there. So there's a challenge for you in the in-lab game asking what's your definition of gamification. So if you want, you can kind of copy this word for word, but it's essentially, it's not serious gaming, as I think YC, I know you're joking, but just to say that it's gamification is really the use of game design and game psychology. So things such as, which I'll cover later, the 4 pillars of gamification, and it's in non-game settings. So things such as, all the use cases that Keith has just mentioned, recycling, CSR, employee engagement, marketing, etc. So those are all non-game settings. And it's meant to be for the purpose of you to engage and motivate your target audience to do target behaviors, the things that you want them to do. So what exactly are these 4 key pillars of gamification? So these are things that, ensure that your experience is engaging throughout. So things such as interactive challenges, you're able to actually, do things. You're not just reading, and it's a one-way engagement. And constant instant feedback as well, where it'll tell you throughout, are you doing well? Are you not doing well? And then if so, how can you move forward? So for example, even things such as how are you answering correctly? And if not, then what can you do? So I always like to do things such as, if you get it wrong, we can give you a chance to answer it correctly, or we link you to the resources that you need to ensure that you can correctly answer it next time. Competition and social, as well as rewards and redemptions. So we'll cover all of these in more detail in our case studies. One thing that I also wanted to do very quickly was just to highlight kind of the answers that we got from 2 weeks ago when we launched this game during our session 2 and what people actually answered. So I think we covered Kahoot as well. I saw a lot of people like to use kind of quiz software, stuff that's very live and on the go, things such as Mentimeter, Flipgrid. One person actually used H5P as well. So we do actually also are able to embed and all of these within our own platform. So it's not like you feel that you have to use one or the other. It can actually use a mix of both platforms. So yeah, a lot of Kahoot and Pear Deck. I think that Jiling, you probably know quite a lot of these as well, since I think there's a lot of sessions that cover. Yeah,
that's
so,
right.
Yeah, I think that our learners are very engaged. They're very, very experienced in all of the different platforms there are. Okay, so I'll also just go through like kind of what I noticed people want to use gamification for. So things such as sales training, learning transfer with the workplace. There's even more specific ones such as medical case studies for students at Gametize. That's quite an interesting one as well. So we do have education module case study later on that we're going to cover with students. So that one's more for leadership and team building. Yeah, so the usual, try to make things more interactive and engaging. That's the general trend of what everyone hopes to use, Gametize or any other software for. And this one, I just wanted to see, what do you look for when you're finding technology solution? Everyone basically said user-friendly. So I think that we always try to keep that in mind, that we really want it to be as easy for you as possible as well. And not only for you as the creator of the games, but also the players to be able to onboard and actually play the games themselves. So yeah, everything leads back to user friendliness, even the time consuming to learn how to use the platform, and time consuming to create all the content on the platform. Yeah, so you can see here things such as coding, programming is difficult. Thankfully for us, we don't. I think Keith has some. I won't say, but I myself don't have that much coding experience. So I've been able to thankfully use Gametize with that as well. Yeah. So what are some of the difficulties you face when creating your programs or projects? So this is some of the stuff that we hope that we can help to address today when we are walking you through our case studies. How can you negotiate things such as where do I even begin? Don't know where or how to start. Storyline interface, and kind of like how can you work together, collaboration as well. So these are things that we hope that we can kind of give you some of our insights, and maybe you can also share with us your experience on that. Okay, so before we start on the case studies as well, just to give a refresher on the 5D framework. So the reason I want to give you a refresher on this is because before the Gametize team start any project, we always go through the 5D framework with our clients. We actually we rather insist on them sitting down with us and walking through this with us. Because if we go in with the 5D framework and we're able to come out with one that's targeted towards the client, then it's much easier to kind of springboard on that for the rest of the project's life cycle as well. So you always ensure that you have the problem statement here. So it has to be quite specific, and then goals. Then you have the target behaviors and emotions. So don't worry if you feel I'm like speeding through this. We'll go through this in much more detail for each case study as well. And then you'll also have the player profile, and then the very last bit where it's the designing the actual gamification strategy itself. So this is where things such as the storyline, interface, the game mechanics, the rewards, that's where all of this comes in. But you can see it's an iterative process. So even if you've finished one, you find maybe you have to go back and revise it as well throughout the life cycle of the entire project. Okay, so if you're curious on this, there's a link there. We will also provide the slides at the end. So all of the URLs here are also in the in-lab game that you are playing right now as well. Okay, so what have we applied the 5D framework to? So these are just some use cases that we've done. And then I think maybe we can just do like a quick activity here if we could turn on annotation. So we'll be covering most of these today, but why don't we, you can just circle or write on the use case that you're interested in the most, whether it's something that you want to do or you want to learn more about what that we've done. So maybe we can give a minute for everyone to circle or put a heart, put a star, or whatever they want to learn more about.
Oh, it's just the learning portion, not the development. No, just kidding.
Just want to chip in real quick that this session will be recorded and be for our future knowledge base as well. So if you have no idea how to annotate, just go to the view options and just hit annotate. You can draw whatever things you want over there.
Yeah, you can stamp your name like Fires has just done as well, if you'd like. And draw a big giant heart. Okay. All right, so I think even with all of the stars everywhere.
I'm a little lost. Where do I get to this screen? Is it at the website where we're supposed to click on it, or what?
No.
The one that you provided in the email. I'm so sorry. I'm just kind of lost.
Oh. Okay,
Actually,
so the one in the email.
maybe you could just screen share the Zoom screen to show how we could annotate that.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if it can show up on mine though.
I think it will show up on mine. Let me try.
Okay.
Okay. So
I think I found it. Is it under view options? Annotate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay. I'm still new to this.
No, actually, this is my third time doing this, and I can never remember how to annotate. It's not so user friendly after all, but once
that's true.
you just need a reminder.
Okay, so I think quite a clear consensus that many people here are today, of course, HR trainers or maybe educators, learning and development, a lot of employee engagement as well. We do actually have some talent acquisition case studies, which I'd like to also share with you today. And I think not so many in consumer engagement, although I see there's some interest there. So if you find that we haven't talked about the case study today that you're interested in, just let us know, by email later on what you're interested in, and then we'll find the case study and email it over to you later on. Okay. Can we clear the screen now?
Let me do it.
All right. There's one person with a
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Full of love.
Yeah, full of love. Okay. So I also wanted to share with you our project life cycle. So this is actually usually shared internally, but I think that it'll also be good for for us to share with others, kind of give some insight on how we work on our projects as well. So you can see that this is the 4th D. That's up to the the target audience. 5th D, you can see it's all by itself because it requires a lot of things. So you can see almost everything here is actually part of the 5th D, which is like the design requirements, idea board, mock-up, the final design. So you can see it's not just the design team where it's the visuals. Usually the project managers and the clients themselves have to actually sit down and we have to walk through what are the rewards that we want to create, what's the structure, how long are we going to be rolling out the campaign, how are we going to be promoting it, as well as how are we going to be doing things such as giving out the rewards. So even nitty gritty stuff like that, we usually try to nail it down. And then of course it will always change as the project goes on, but just wanted to give an idea of kind of what we do. Of course, there's the tech side as well. If you're working with a tech team, for example, who needs to also do the coding and development on their side. Okay, and then I also just wanted to give a refresher on the SAPS framework. We'll also be walking you through each case study where it will have their own rewards framework. So for example, from stuff, some people have given things to vouchers and money to even the success. So we'll walk you through what clients have done for their rewards framework and how effectively they've worked for it as well for their target audience. Okay, so I'll just start off with this one first. So if you have any questions, just feel free to type in the chat. We'll get to it at the end of each case study section. So this one's actually an e-commerce company that has a headquarters in Japan, thus the ninja narrative that they went with, but they also have offices in Singapore. So what happened with this particular client was that they approached us to help do things such as deliver the company values and principles in a way that was more in line to the nature of the foundations themselves. So, i.e., their vision, mission, values were all about, being as fast and innovative as possible. But it was very hard for the employees to really believe that that was the case when, they were forcing the employees to kind of learn these company vision, and values through very traditional methods, such as giving out booklets and slide decks and having them sit into the presentations. And they found it quite boring, even though the whole point was, you should be innovative, you should keep moving forward, you should move fast and accelerate as fast as possible. So they decided that, let's try to make it more interactive, more engaging, to show them that we really care as well. So another thing they realized as well was that, they had acquired a lot of subsidiary companies. And then a lot of these new employees who were just recently acquired didn't really understand what the company values were. But not only that, they actually realized that even their current employees didn't really understand what they were. So they thought, this is a really good chance for us to kind of, refresh everybody on the VMBs, but also to get people to know each other and kind of foster a better sense of company culture to show them, this is who we are. So, they've done the profiling, and they thought, it's the usual Gen millennials were young, 25 to 30, mobile savvy, very, technologically literate, and able to, they're always on their phones, etc. So they thought, okay, this is a good chance for them to use their mobiles. And you can see that the narrative that they ended up with was Ninja Sam. So it wasn't just random, as I said, that they're based in Japan, but they actually do have headquarters throughout the world. So each place was kind of like their headquarters where they're based. So there was some sense of the locations and the narrative makes sense as well. So the player would be Sam, the ninja, and he would go throughout each of the different cities and actually complete the quests to help save the world. And while saving the world, they're able to learn more about each of the company values as well. So I think there were 5 company values. So there's 5 locations. And then they rolled it out one every, I can't remember, maybe a week or so. So you can see that there's kind of like a content progression there. And then there's this very clear narrative of them fighting this shadow monster here as well. So just to let you know that actually we only proposed the initial narrative for this of the ninja, but the team themselves actually developed everything else. They were the ones that really took ownership, and they actually built everything else up. We came in more from the perspective of helping with the tech and the images. So I think it's always good for the clients to take ownership, because they are the ones, of course, that know their target audience best. Even though we can, of course, advise based on our own knowledge as well. Okay, so you can take a look at the narrative here. So they really thought of the entire storyline. And what you'll realize is that there's a lot of riddles, and it's not always very clearly, about the VMB. Sometimes it's like they have to think about the storyline and answer these riddles as well, such as this here. And then they have other things as well that are kind of more fun challenges to foster a sense of company culture and kind of bonding. So for example, this one here, where you actually have to try and find the person in the company who looks the most like this silhouette. So, and then, once you find the person, then they will give you a QR code to scan and you will get extra points. So it kind of was meant for you to go around and talk to people. So even if you didn't know who this person was, you could talk to your colleagues who might know who it was. So it's meant to have that kind of bonding there. And after you do all these challenges, then that's where the education aspect comes in, where they will teach you about each of the company values. So for example, maximizing customer satisfaction. What's the conflict of interest here? So you can see it's not like very in your face. They will do it throughout the entire narrative. And then there's a very good progression where, you defeat the monster, you complete the riddles, you complete the quest, you go on to the next one. So there's the feeling of achievement and progression. Okay, so I also want to point out the reward store. So we actually helped design the rewards for this. When the client came to us, they asked us, can you make a picture of Ninja Potion, the Lucky Charm, and the Ninja Armor? So these are our rewards. And I was just like, what are these rewards actually? Surely it can't be that. And they're like, oh, no, it's this one's our company t-shirt, this one's the keychain, and this one's the sports drink. So they actually really thought of everything the whole way through. So of course, like,
Company,
sorry?
the armor was a company jacket, I think.
Oh, jacket. Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, I think one of my pop quizzes on there might be wrong because I sent the answer.
Oh, hint.
Okay, so
Major hint.
So major hint if you guys are listening. I said it as company t-shirt. So answer company t-shirt to get the correct answer because I remembered it.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they actually really thought of the whole narrative, and these were prizes you could get with points that you redeemed, but they actually had another one where the top person throughout the entire game at the end was flown to Japan to the HQ, and then the CEO actually gave them a tour of the office as well. So that's an example of a SAPS reward where it's kind of like you have a bit of status, access, and power. Money can't buy that. Who can buy, you being able to fly to Japan, get a tour by the CEO of the company himself. So that's something that I think that it was very enticing to a lot of people, but of course only one person could get it. Okay, so I'll just go through the stats. So what I want to kind of point out mostly is the 84% completion rate out of the number of players. So the reason that it remained high throughout, you can see that throughout the entire 5 chapters, it remained just under 90%, which is actually quite high. So when I was interviewing the project owner for this later on, I told him like, oh, I looked through the stats. How did you manage to keep it high? And the truth is a lot of it is the project team really has to remain invested throughout the entire process, where they were checking in on people, seeing how well they were doing as well, and taking feedback on the game, improving it while the game's still live as well. And another thing they noticed was it's quite common for people to have a fatalistic effect. So I think if you guys don't know what that is, it's when you join a game late or you lagged behind for a little bit because, let's say, you went on holiday, you were on sick leave, you come back, and then you realize that out of 253 players, you are now number 200, and you just are like, what's the point? I'm not going to get to number 1 anyway. So they really wanted to avoid that kind of thinking. So what they actually did was that they would monitor how well everyone's doing, identify who was lagging behind, and then they would actually send them a personal email saying like, hey, we've got these lunch sessions where our team will be there to help you to catch up with us on the game content. So just come in and join. It'll be a fun lunch session. And then people would actually go in, and that's where they help people to catch up, because the goal of this game was to ensure that everyone was on board. So you can see as I'm speaking that it really took a lot of investment and effort from the team to ensure that this was a success. So of course there's tech limitations here. So it's always good to learn that from our perspective as well, so that we can kind of see how people are using the platform and then improve it accordingly. So it's always good for you to also, debrief at the end and see what people liked and also, what could be done better. So overall, yeah, I think that this is one of my favorite case studies because I really like the narrative, and I mean I really like that the client did it themselves as well because it shows that you don't have to be a gamification expert in that sense to be able to create a really effective gamification program. Okay, so I think that before we move on to the next case study, I just want everyone to head to the game itself. And then we're just going to do like a little pop quiz. So if you guys are paying attention, yeah, Ignatius has just given you guys the URL. So I'll just give everyone maybe 2 minutes to do that. Hopefully you've remembered which question that I totally on purpose configured incorrectly.
Probably, why don't you share the screen of the project now?
Yep, I'll share that now. All right, so Ignatius has just given you the URL, but you'll see, oh, that's the admin side.
I just wanted to say that the price that you spoke about just now, you could be right, I could be wrong.
Okay.
I might actually one of those prizes actually in my office.
Okay, regardless, I gave the answer anyway, so let's hope people were listening. Okay, so I'll just show you where it is. So in the game session 3, we've got levels 1, 2, and then we've got the case studies. So Ignatius from our team is helping to take care of all of the logistics for the publishing. So you can just go into here and then answer all the quizzes. So unfortunately, you can also see what I've just answered, which is correct. So I should probably stop sharing. And then just ensure that you also do, there's also the reflection takeaway. So it'll be nice for you guys if you can also just write down like a very brief sentence on kind of what you like about the case study so that we can kind of see what's the insight as well. Yeah, so I'll give everyone maybe another minute to do that before we move on to the next case study.
I think Regine has a question. She can see the study. Is it because she signed in as guest?
See the, sorry?
She mentioned that he or she can see the case study. Oh, they can't. Yeah, the case study is not published on the project itself. It's just a quiz. However, we actually do have that particular case study, I think, on Academy.
Yep.
Right. You could download it on your own.
Just write that in the chat as well. So I just put a link in the chat for the case studies page. So that's the one that contains all of the case studies we're talking about today in detail. So if you find that, you still want to learn a little bit more about each of the case studies, feel free to go to this link here and then check it out. Yeah. All right, so I'll just show you kind of how this our platform works as well. As you can see, as I'm refreshing, the number of completions actually will go up, and I can actually see how many people got it right or wrong. Okay, so 11 got it right.
What's your favorite takeaway in Ninja Quest?
Okay, so for me, I really like how the team really took ownership of the entire game narrative from end to end, to the point that they even thought about the rewards as well and kind of fitting the rewards to the narrative. So that's actually something that, to be honest, is not very common. A lot of clients for the reward store, they will still kind of keep it like the usual, but for them, they really like sold the whole thing. And I think that from some of the user reception, a lot of people actually really resonated with that narrative as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, maybe you could show like can go back to the case study, right? I would like to share the screen about some of the feedbacks from the users. yeah, the one talking about having the values and principles stated so clearly on our badge. So I've actually have a friend who actually works in this company, and he was giving some feedback as well, right? You know, it is a Japanese company, and a lot of times they have in a lot of international um, employees from all over the world, right? It seems like they acquire companies for breakfast, and so a lot of times when the companies first join the group, right, they face some challenges in trying to adapt to the company's culture, right? So one of the feedback from the user of this game is that this actually allows them to bridge the gap between the culture, right? Which I think is very important. And I also like the idea that it was entirely designed by our clients, right? Gametize doesn't need to be involved. Does anyone know what is the average number of hours, or just make a guess, right? How many hours does it take to create e-learning experience typically, right? For 1 hour, right? Just throw in your answers in terms of number of hours. Do you think it takes about 5 hours to create 1 hour of e-learning content, or do you think it takes about 300?
You have an answer from Regine already.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
Regine said 200 to 300 hours, and then Marcus said 4 hours for 1 hour.
Yeah. So actually, I have on hand some of the data, right? I could check on the link, right? CalCup actually did a research on that, and the numbers varies from 50 to 150 hours, right? So it takes a lot of time to create e-learning content, and I think it's really important to have a very simple solution, or to do a lot of testing, right? And gamifications, is not going to help you decrease the number of hours of developing content. Is going to add on to the hours. But from our experience, right, you can have different people doing the different jobs, right? So someone can be very specialized in developing the content, and you can get another colleague or another teammate to help create the storyline narratives. Okay, so I think we can move on. I think we have people answering the questions already.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Prapim. So having covered the Ninja Quest, right, which is really not exactly a full L&D campaign, but there's an aspect of code of conduct, there's an aspect of a vision and mission setting, right? This new project that we wanted to talk about is also by an international client, right? And so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so the client over here is called JTH, right? It's part of the Jardins Medicine Group. And when they first came to us, I think that was sometime in 2017 or 2016. And they first came to us, right? They were looking for a solution, right, that allows them to create a cohesive environment. And because the work culture over in this particular company is has a very high stress factor. So the HR client that came to me says that they're looking for a solution, right, that allows their employees to be engaged, right, doing the various things, right. There will be an announcement board, there will be fun challenges, there will be an innovation management aspect as well, and they will be able to do onboarding, right, of new colleagues through the solution. So you can see over here, right, this is an example of submissions that's being provided by the clients, right, employees. Okay, next slide. And you could see that in this particular case study, right, the client didn't just see this as an employee engagement exercise, but they very cleverly used the solution as a content management intranet. And they were able to create a topic just for announcements. They create another topic for signing up for activities. There was one topic for innovation ideas, right? Innovative ideas where people could submit ideas and earn points. There's even one particular topic called praises. And in praises, all you have to do is to come here to praise a colleague. That's all you have to do, right? And of course, there's a good old onboarding project over there, right? In fact, in this particular onboarding project, they have a VR element embedded as one of the topics, one of the challenges, right? We can talk about that later. Next slide. And these are some examples of the challenges. As you can see over here, right? The clients are definitely not designers, right? They were actually able to make use of some other tools, right, to create their graphics. They were very creative. They were actually using different animation tools that's very cheap out there to create animations, videos on the platform as well. So they have Zumba classes that's available as a workshop. People could sign up, right? There are quizzes, there are idea sharing. Next slide. Okay, with regards to the VR element, right? Actually, it was really just a VR video that's embedded as one of the challenges for the people to do, right? And in this VR element, right, they could actually hear the CEO, right, speaking. So the CEO will actually give a virtual office tour, and as well as really explaining about the company's culture. One of the three things that the slide actually that you're looking at showcases what are the three key considerations in order to ensure success for your campaign, right? The first thing that we notice a lot about very successful projects is that they tend to always involve the C-levels to actually participate in the project itself. I'm not sure whether you can zoom in, Prapim, to the heroes.
I can try, but probably not.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So you could see that there are actually different words from the different C-levels, right? And when you tap on them, they will actually either have a video or they will have some like quotes over there, right? So every now and then they will have words from the C-levels and from the leaders. At other times they will have challenge of the month from the CFO, challenge of the week by the CEO, right? So when your audience notice that even the managements are participating, right, they would take the campaign a lot more seriously. So the second aspect is simple challenges, right? So when we talk about simple challenges, right, they should be as simple as they will be able to complete something within minutes, right, or even seconds. So you notice that even in our sample projects the project that we have created for you, right, the challenges usually have content or questions that are very simple to answer, right? So that allows a form of scaffolding, right? It allows people to just get on board and start participating with the project and get engaged with the campaign right away. So you can see over here, right, the challenges are really simple, right? Share your happy and sweet moments. And, and finally, right, it must be for the meaningful purpose, right? So a lot of times, right, they wanted to ensure that this particular employee engagement campaign is not just all about work, right? But there's an aspect about family, right? People will be sharing about their own kids. It's a very family culture. And secondly, right, it allows them to also praise one another, right? So there's a very meaningful purpose behind that, right? It really tries to create a culture of recognition and appreciation about one another, right? So we find that to be a very meaningful objective, right? So if you have these three key considerations taken care of, right, you will have significantly increased the chance of success for your project. All right, we can go to the next slide. So there was a very, very big uptake within the first 1.5 months of the project, right? And in fact, the engagement is still quite strong. One of the reasons why the engagement is very strong is because this project or this particular campaign is a very utility one, right? If you want to know about any kind of events that's happening, right, you should come into this project. If you want to be able to know what's the latest update in the company, you have to come into this project. Yeah. You could see that. So I think I remember that they had about 3,000 employees, and within the first 1.5 months, right, more than half already came on board the project voluntarily, right? So there was no compulsory directives, right? By benchmark, this is a very high percentage. You can go to the next slide. But something that really interests us is we noticed that in the initial months, right, even though there were a lot of rewards, if you are familiar with Hong Kong, right, Mannings is kind of like the guardians of Singapore, right? So, and there were vouchers given out over there. But we were very curious and we wanted to learn more. Why are the redemptions not happening yet, right? So we were very curious why people were just competing for points for leaderboard places, but they were not redeeming the rewards. So it turns out that, right, there were a couple of reasons. First and foremost, right, the players, right, are coming into this project because there's a strong novelty factor, right? Secondly, right, they just were not sure what other new rewards will be coming up. So they just maybe want to reserve their points, right? Because it's such a new project, right? They are not sure what's going to happen later on. All right, next slide. So JTH is really a super champion as well, right? They have quite a lot of case studies, so I'll just leave you to just search for them, right? These are some of the links that maybe probably you can, I'm not sure whether you can copy and paste and put it in the comments.
Sure.
Yeah. So this was a particular project that I really have a lot of appreciation for, because it was completely designed by our stakeholders, right? We did not really participate very much in that. And in fact, it was also one of the rare ones that have multiple languages as well, right? So you can see that they actually use traditional Chinese wordings in some of their challenges. Another thing that I really appreciate about this particular project is that it covers a lot of different use cases. So the client actually took time to do a lot of testing to find out what really works for them. So I'm happy to share that this project is still ongoing, right? They have since used Gametize for many other use cases, such as recruitment and also for scholarship gamification as well. Okay, so I think this is when we can go on to our pop quiz, right? And if you have any questions, please just share with us over here on the chat or on the game itself.
Oh, sorry, let me just share my screen back. All right, so let's just go on to the pop quiz here. So you can see now that as we're going through it, Ignatius is actually publishing the content as we go along. So you can actually just go on straight, and then some people have already completed it as well. All right, so this is also your chance to ask us questions. I know some of you have have in the chat asked whether there's live demos of these games. So we'll show you where you can find templates for games later on, which are kind of like samples of these that you can try for kind of like, for you to actually see the live versions themselves. Yeah, so any questions?
So we have covered the very case study was about some form of onboarding and also mission and vision inculcation. And the second case study was a mixture of onboarding and employee engagement, right? So we wanted to just get some of these case studies that is not so L&D related out of the way, but we will be covering more focused L&D case studies later on. And I think we have some of the remarks from Caroline, right? Employees wouldn't feel that it would take time away from their main work. This feels more like employee morale and teamwork achievement hunters. So I would say, yes, this generally was to promote the culture of employee recognition, right? And also to make them feel like this is not just an environment that's just work, right? And at the same time, there are constraints to actually introduce live events all the time, especially as of today, right? It's even harder. So that is where gamification can come in very handy, right? You can use the platform to create live events, virtual events that's very, very consistent and guided on the whole user experience.
So just another note, I think as Keith mentioned, you can see in the example as well that for JTH, they used it for things such as like registering for Zumba classes, welfare eye screening. If I remember, I saw their game as well. You were also able to pick or suggest a movie for a movie night. So part of the reason why people, I think, were able to come to this app instead of feeling like it took away from their work was because, you know, a lot of what is happening at work is actually in the app itself. Because the client was saying that whenever she was sending out EDMs newsletters, it wasn't very timely, but people know to check the app for all the latest happenings. So that's how it got to the point. Like, she kind of really tried to make it work there, where people know that, oh, if I go to the app, it's the one-stop shop for everything that's happening in this organization. All right, so I think we can move on to the next case study. I'll just share my screen again.
Maybe I'll just do a check. Has everybody completed the questions?
Oh, right, yes.
Because I just completed.
Okay.
You can just type a no if you need more time, or you can just type a yes so we know we can proceed in the chat. Or you can type in Gametize.
You can go through the submissions in reflections, Prabin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we asked people to kind of give a reflection. So if you haven't seen our platform before, we can actually see what people have written here as well.
So I think we saw a particular comment by Kaifeng, right? Informative events can be digital, but not dinner and dance, right? That should be a social event where we eat with fellow colleagues in a special event. So the interesting thing is that we have also, Gametize has actually been used for dinner and dance gamification, right? That means in the live event itself, they will actually create challenges like take a selfie with your favorite colleagues, or answer some pop quizzes, right? So that has definitely been used. It's actually a very popular email inquiry that keeps coming into our mailbox.
Yeah,
How can
obviously we're not getting so many of those now, but the client that used that we mentioned that actually gamified their dinner and dance, one of the reasons was quite simple, was that they said when they were voting, they used to go with loudest clap, which obviously is not very standardized. So they were like, if we just put in a poll, then at least we can know objectively, you know, which team actually got voted for the most, as opposed to who can clap the loudest for. So it's simple things like that that you can actually kind of transfer onto a platform as well.
Okay, you are probably wondering by now, like there are different types of submissions, right? Some of them is just answering yes, right? Some of them are just giving more longer answers, but everyone is getting 10 points, right, at the same time. So this is definitely one of the constraints of our solution, and a lot of gamification solutions as well, right? Because there's no AI that can really capture the accuracy of the answers altogether. So one of the things that we actually do a lot in Gametize is we actually do allow people to actually earn extra points when they are being voted upon. So I'm just going to turn on the voting aspect. Ignatius, please add 1 point for all votes for all reflections answers as well, right? So if I were to go to the solutions right now, if I do vote on them, right, for example, Kaifeng's answer, right, he should actually get an additional point. I only just literally turn it on. So that's one way of, in fact, you can give 0 points up front, and later on you could actually get everyone to vote on each other, so that those good answers will actually get additional points.
Yeah, you can see on my screen I'm actually voting as well. So if Keith has just turned on the settings, then that means that for every vote, I should get an additional point. Yeah. So that's one way that you can also drive kind of community-driven, submissions and contents, is that you give extra points for people who are giving good answers as well. So that's a question I think that we've addressed before, where how can you stop people from, submitting bogus answers? And sometimes you can moderate it, but it's also very difficult as an administrator to a game that might be getting a lot of completions. So one way is to get the community to upvote things that are, well done, and then naturally all the good submissions will be rising to the top. All right, is everyone good for the next case study? Anyone needs more time? Okay, if all good, then I'll just continue on to the next case study. So we're going to do, are we doing Space Runner now, or would you like to do that later? Because we have sales training as well, actually. I remember one of the,
yeah, we could do Space Runner. If you like, we could actually play the video.
Sure. Okay. So I am not sure how well video is going to, so just let me know if. So I'll just play it before we give context on what this is. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Ah, okay.
Okay, I just want to provide some commentary while we are going through this video. So you can probably see by now that it's actually a space storyline that we have introduced to this particular project, right? Sorry, Prapin, the video ended quite abruptly.
Oh, okay, because you started talking, so I can continue.
Yeah. So okay, could you just move backwards a bit? I wanted to show the part where they are actually doing the desktop submission. Prapin, could you rewind to the part where they are doing the photo submission?
Sorry, where?
The photos submission.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. Okay. This is actually a very good screen. Yeah. So what happens over here is
Oh, sorry. It takes me a while too.
Okay. We'll just run through this whole video. All right. No problem. So I wanted to just you can just play the video, right? Don't worry, right? Just reduce the sound. So this particular challenge revolves around taking photos of your clean desk. But one of the reasons why we introduced this challenge was because there was a lot of code of conduct and compliance related challenges, right? So if you remember right at the start, right, Prapin, could you just rewind? Yeah, somewhere. So, okay, I can just do the narration again, right? Throughout the video, right? So this was a space storyline, right? Back in 2015, right? Does anyone remember what is the very famous movie in 2015 about space travel?
Hint. Should I give a hint?
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, okay.
So it's based on Interstellar, right? I remember one of the reasons why we recommended this storyline was because the head of L&D of this company was a huge Interstellar fan. So we wanted to present a narrative that they can relate to. So this is a storyline where you just have to travel across space, right? Go to different planets, go to the different types of wormholes, right? To do your training there. So the very first one that we went to was actually planet Earth, right? So in planet Earth, right, you could actually just learn about Singapore, a lot of interesting information about Singapore. Now, what another major event in 2015 was Singapore's 50th anniversary, and hence, right, this whole game was structured to have 50 new things to learn. Yeah. So in the very first wormhole that you can go into, you can see that there were questions about about bribery, right? And Robin, could you just freeze this screen? So you can see that over here, right? We wanted to, this is actually a question about bribery, right? But we wanted to create more engaging storylines, right? We didn't want to make it just feel like it's just all work, right? That's why we created some element of very obvious fake answer as a way of providing content. So Prabhim, you could play the video. So upon actually answering this particular question, right, you will get some form of feedback. So in this feedback, you can get a number of points if you get it correct. In Gametize, you can actually configure for people to actually get still a certain amount of points even for not getting the answer correct as well. Right. So the feedback element over there is a really, really important aspect. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is actually the reward store. Right. I think it's lower down the stream. Okay, we can freeze this screen. All right. So this is basically the amount of rewards that the company is giving out based on the number of points over here and back in 2015. So it's just a very quick pop quiz, right? Which one do you think or believe is the most popular reward over here? One of the rewards here got snapped up within minutes. Right, the moment it was launched as a flash reward, right, it immediately got taken up very, very quickly.
Okay, a lot of people are saying it's Gongcha voucher. Arius thinks it's the movie ticket.
All right. So the answer is actually movie tickets, right? I think it's just Singapore is that boring, right? That people just really wanted to just go to the cinema all the time to get aircon as well. So I think that's very important. Now, can anyone guess which is the least popular reward over here as well? One of the rewards over here, we just couldn't give it. No, nobody was redeeming it, and we actually had to give out to the top 5 players. But not really. All right, so we have some answers about cupcakes and
cupcakes, yeah.
So cupcakes really was the least popular reward in this particular campaign, right? And so actually, my suggestion for reward store is always to give a variety of different prizes. Another way to make this really fun and interesting is to actually time your rewards, right, at serendipitous timing, right? So you don't put up all your rewards all at one go, right? You have flash ones, just like how Grab and many other e-commerce stores does it, right? They would tend to give out special deals only at special time, right? So this creates a level of anticipation and excitement for your target audience. Yep. For Marcus, well, was it because of demographics? I think so, right? I think maybe these are very health conscious Singaporeans.
Yeah, I mean, you can even tell from people answering in our chat that they kind of instinctively knew that the cupcakes were the least popular for some reason. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can go to the case study already.
Okay.
All right, so launched in February 2015, and storyline was about a space travel in the galaxy to bring back 50 learning lessons. All of the graphics you see here are all open source, royalty-free images that you can find on the internet. That's also another recommendation that we always give our clients and our partners, right? You don't have to design everything from scratch. There are a lot of things you can recycle. Next slide.
Yeah, just like the stock music, as I was saying.
Yeah. And so there are 13 stations, right? Every station is launched every 1 month or so, right? So the content do not all get uploaded, or they do not pawn to the clients, users directly, right? So they will not feel overwhelmed. And our storyline is that this is a ship that you are able to travel around. So you can see that the next challenge, that example that you see on the screen, is actually one about anti-money. Sorry, is one about whistleblowing policy. Yeah, and the one on the right side is about AML, anti-money laundering. As you can see over here again, right? These are actually typically very boring questions, right? But we crafted a kind of storyline to make it more fun and interesting. And you can see some of the options are obviously fake. They cannot be the right answer. For example, you decided to introduce a whistleblowing statement, right, to the space runners. How can the whistleblowing statement help, right? Obviously, the answer cannot be all space runners will be given a whistle, right? But that's just a red herring, just a distraction, right? So we find that actually humor, right, really does bring an element of engagement to the campaign as well. Okay, next slide. Right, this particular project is very different from the other projects that I've shared with you just now, right? In the sense that there are actually only, there were actually about the previous two projects are targeting only internal employees, right? And they have very confidential information over there. But in this particular one, right, one of the things that the company wanted to do is to avoid uploading sensitive user employee email address. So it's a very tightly regulated industry, right? It's a bank, and hence they didn't want to infringe any compliance. So they will allow anyone to join the game. However, right, only employees could redeem the rewards, and the only way they could redeem the rewards is to actually go up to the table, right, of the HR on the last Friday of the month, right, to redeem the rewards. So anyone could log in using Facebook. Players would actually earn points, right? And at the end of it, they were able to redeem some prizes, but there will be a final showdown, right? For the top 4 players, right, they will actually enter a game show in this setting. Next. So you can see over here, right? It was a physical event, a game show. They got the Flying Dutchman to be the MC over here. Next slide. And so this is more physical game show format, so I wouldn't be talking so much about that. But ultimately, right, probably next slide. Mm-hmm. All right, so I just wanted to share some of the things that that has worked for us. Now, you can see that the questions were all very generic as well, right? In fact, a lot of those answers can be found on the internet in their code of compliance pages as well, right? And hence, right, this is we were okay with the public coming in. But however, right, again, the emphasis is that only the employees will be able to win the prizes. So we try to localize this particular campaign, right? Just now, I asked the question about how many hours does it take to create e-learning content, right? Some people answered 4 hours, right? Some people answered 200 hours, right? For this particular project, right, we put in more than 300 hours for that 1 hour of learning content. For that 50 challenges, it was 300 hours, right? One of the bottleneck was a lot of approvals that's required back and forth, right? We needed to work the Qualcomm's office, we needed to work with the client itself, the business owner, right? So the more stakeholders involved, the more time you're going to spend on creating the content, right? But end of the day, right, we were able to find a middle ground, right? We introduced some Singlish, right, just to localize it a bit more. We included a lot of memes, right, just to engage the target audience. Next. And so just now somebody asked the question about the target audience. Who are the demographics, right? So you can see these are the 3 groups, right? Retail, sales employees, operations and technology employees, and the 3rd group is the non-executive and Generation X. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Marcus, right? Actually, in most of our campaign, right, in Gametize, we don't really look at demographics that much. We are actually more focused on the profiles of the job, and we are also more interested in the psychographics as well, right? What is the motivation? But so looking at this particular slide, right? There's just one main challenge that a lot of us are facing when we wanted to create a customized campaign, right? If you really were to look very closely at these three groups, right, it pretty much represent everyone in the company, right? So unfortunately, right, despite our best effort to get the clients to narrow and focus on low-hanging fruits, right, to focus on a specific group for a start, right, we were told from the onset we have to create and customize our campaign for these whole three groups. The good old saying, if you were to create something for everybody, right, you will end up creating something for nobody. So that was really the case that happens over here. Next slide. So those were the goals that we had identified right at the start, right? This particular bank had 6,000 employees, right? We wanted 50% participation rate on the third month, right? The results were quite different, right? We have about 500, less than about 400 unique players. And however, right, one thing that we did achieve is the completion rate per player, right? So players who actually participated were very engaged, right? However, we could only get 7% of the bank to actually come into this game. So so what really went well is that we felt like the storylines were engaging, right? It was very thematic. The narratives were very unusual, right? Aesthetics wise, right? The images are not just plain stock images, right? Actually, we put in the effort to actually customize some of them. We created the planets, and we also borrowed some ready to use internet images. Next slide. So it was also very seasonal, right? So we tried to time it with something that is happening in the real world right now at the point of time, right? It was Singapore's 50th anniversary. And it was also in line with getting employers to actually get everyone in the company to learn more about Singapore through the trivias. So there was a little bit of employer branding exercise happening here. And we would actually give 5 points for every vote, right? To encourage participants to bring in their friends. With regards to Marcus' question about locking up the game with password, I forgot to mention that. So there needs to be a password that we actually would have to implement for people to come in. However, that is not very secure, right? Just keep in mind, because the passwords can be easily shared with one another. All right, so I think we just wanted to also talk about what could have been improved, right? So we realized that maybe the game is not going to be very scalable if it was going to go beyond these 50 challenges, right? We have to keep finding new graphics, and because the graphics are all very consistent, right? They are all reusing a particular stock image library. When we run out of those images, we have to start creating those images ourselves. The second thing I wanted to just talk about is there were too many log challenges, right? So players were not able to choose what they want to do, right? This can be a pro and con, right? So I can't really say that this is exactly something that is something that did not work for us.
And then I just want to chip in for the images here as well. So I think that Marcus had a good question of like, how much should we be targeting low-hanging fruit by, having really obviously wrong questions? And then Furley, who is actually part of Gametize, he actually answered as well that it's good to have a bit of progression. So make it easy at first, and then make it as they start to kind of, pick up the skills and progression during the game. That's where you can kind of up the difficulty, and then the person playing won't feel that it's becoming like too hard too quickly. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because actually there were some challenges here. So for example, this one here, where we asked them to take a photo of their books as high and creatively as possible. And you can tell that people either just took random photos like this, or they actually just stole it straight from Google Images. So even that, it might feel simple, but then perhaps it's like they weren't expecting to do this challenge so soon. That's why it's good to have a sense of progression. That's why it's also good to have a moderation, either by yourself as the moderator and or have the community come in and vote. So people get 5 points for voting. So of course, like if I knew I get 5 points for voting, I'm going to go and upvote. But hopefully the community would also be upvoting all of the actual like valid answers, as opposed to, oh, I saw this person took an image of Google Images, I'm not going to upload that because that's like quite an anonymous or fake answer in a way.
Great.
Okay, that actually just answer that. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Propin. Right. So back to the quality of posts over here, you could see that that was something that this is one of the just for fun challenges as well. So I think it's good to incorporate some of these interesting physical challenges, right? Not everything needs to be digital as well, right? I'm actually not a very huge fan of moving everything entirely to the online world. Even for something like learning, right? One way to bring back the offline element is to have a challenge like have a check-in session with a mentor, right? Share something new with your buddy at work, and put it over here on Gametize to tell us what's the takeaway as well, right? So that offline learning aspect can also be captured in a gamification digital campaign as well. Okay, so some of the challenges were too difficult, right? Which demotivated the players. Something to keep in mind. Next slide. And I think I should not be covering too much about this, right? Let's move on.
Okay. I can move on. All right, okay. So I think that before we move on to more case studies, perhaps we can do a bit.
I just wanted to skip that particular slide, but could you go back to the one in Space Runner feedback? Yeah, client feedback.
Sure.
All right. So these are the clients themselves, right? These are some of the things that they have provided. So I think the point of today's session is not to just share what are the things that work well for us, right? We also wanted to talk about what did not work for us as well, right? Can you go to the next slide? So it's a great example, right, of aesthetics, right? I think that is very obvious, right? But we really felt like one of the biggest areas for improvement is really doing the profiling of the users. I can't emphasize how important it is to actually not be too greedy and not be too overly ambitious. Be very realistic and practical, and narrow down on the target audience, because the more understanding you have of your target profile, the easier it would be for you to localize and customize your experience for them. Okay, so before, I think this is where we can jump into the quiz.
All right, so we'll just do kind of the knowledge check for this before we do maybe a 5-minute break. And then after the 5-minute break, that's when we'll get back into the rest of the case studies that we have for today. So I believe that Ignatius should have already published all of the pop quizzes for Space Runner. So if you've come in later, Ignatius, could you just help to put the URL of the game that I'm sharing now onto the chat, and then those that came in a little bit later can actually go in and then complete some of the challenges now. Okay, so while Ignatius is doing that, he'll just put the URL in the chat. I'll actually help to just answer some of the questions as well. Or if anything, yeah, okay, just looking at YC, yeah, of course, like it's quite tempting, I think, during our sessions that you really want to speak about, how well you're doing and then gloss over the things that didn't go well. But we've also had our share of projects that didn't go very well, whether it's because, the profiling, maybe the timeline, it could also be the resources. There's many reasons that projects can, not take off. And then we're happy to also talk more about those. You can also share more about your insights on, your experiences on why, your projects also didn't go well. I think it's all good for us to learn. Okay, so Inla Jilang actually asked, did the organization share why the participation rate was only 7%?
I could take on this question. I read a research, and I also asked like a lot of different companies, what are the what's the voluntary rate of, what's the rate of employees just taking part in campaigns internally driven without any pressure, right? The benchmark is that about at, if I'm not wrong, about 5%, right? And hence actually, this is the way it is in the industry, really, right? It is really very challenging to onboard people into your campaigns, right? Without, if they do not feel like there's enough reasons. Traditionally, right, there should be enough. I mean, in this particular campaign, there were actually enough prizes, right? So initially, we were also quite curious, like why are there not enough buy-ins, right? I think at the end of the day, we realized that not everyone really cares about all these prizes. End of the day, right? A lot of those rewards you can see are what money can buy. So we felt like if there were, in fact, subsequently when we work with this same company, right, for future projects, we have actually introduced a lot more interesting rewards. Like there's a private grooming consultation session with with the head of learning, who was a very well-groomed lady, right? She has a lot, she was great at image consulting, right? So you get to redeem that one session, and within minutes it was just redeemed right away. So I felt like these are the kind of rewards that actually should have been also introduced as well, right? In fact, they cost nothing except the management's time. And most of the time, we realize that the managements are actually more than keen to be part of the campaign, right? They are happy to sponsor their time to be for a coffee chat or for a one-on-one consultation session as well.
Okay, so the rewards play a part. So I guess different companies would know their own employees well to structure and design the rewards appropriately.
Marcus, which profile made up the 7%, right? It was a lot of the HR people. You were able to get the immediate friends to come into or colleagues or departments to join the project, right? So I would say quite a lot of them were there, and the rest of them were probably operational related stuff, right? But I felt like perhaps what also was not as well done was the lack of marketing, right? So we did not really get involved with helping with the EDMs. We were not really involved in helping with giving ideas how to do marketing as well. So subsequently, actually, we were very much involved in end-to-end delivery of all our campaigns. Okay, so while we are doing that quiz, all right, please go and take a bio break if you have to. And also, right, if you have any questions, right, just feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask in person, or you can just type out on the screen. Yes, Marcus, friends of creators are very important people, right? They, these are the people that can provide the initial boost of your community. They will do seeding of your completions as well, right? And they will give you feedbacks how you can improve your project. So we always tend to recommend our clients to do things in small different stages before they start to open up their campaigns.
Okay, so I guess that maybe for the 5D framework, I'm not sure whether we'll have time to do that because actually it's already 4:30.
Yeah.
So perhaps instead, during the 5-minute break, while we wait for everyone to come back, if you're still sitting with us, I can actually show you the game where it was the dinner and dance. I think I should have it on my platform now, just in case some of you might have been curious, like how does a dinner and dance become gamified actually? So I'll just show you the copied version because that way there's no actual data on it, but this is the actual version of it. So just to share a little bit quickly about this project. So it was partly because they wanted to kind of, show that the organization was moving towards digital, meaning that, since we as an organization are moving to digital, we want to show that even our dinner and dance can be gamified as well. So one of the things I mentioned was, they wanted to make a data-driven, i.e., let's not do the loudest claps anymore. So what we can actually do is voting itself. So on the day itself, the organizer would actually have like all the votes. People would be voting for things such as the best booth. So I'm not sure like for how all organizations do their dinner and dance, but how they particularly did it was that all the employees in one particular department, which was about, I think, a few hundred people, they all had, their designated team leads. So they would have to get, them as a booth, and then the booth would be like carnival type games. So for example, things such as, throw the hoop ball into the hoop, and then, the shooting range kind of basketball hoops kind of game. And then you can actually vote for which team did the best booth, which team is the best dressed as well. Everyone came in the carnival theme, and then also things such as the best performance. So you could even do, it's not even just the events during the dinner and dance itself. You'll see also that they actually did registration on the game. So for example, like, they kept a flashcard of like, check in here. So we have our QR code challenge, meaning that they actually printed the QR code generated by our platform itself, and then you could scan it to show people to check in and like, mark your attendance that you actually came in. So they would get points just for being present at the event. And then you could also choose like to the time slot as well. So you get points just for doing really random things such as registering, turning up, choosing your coach, and then that's where they would be able to get the information as well for the event. So another thing that I really liked, which I'm not sure whether it would be here. Oh, okay, it is. So the submissions aren't here, but this is the copied version. So what they did was that some teams were really insistent on getting extra points, but of course, if you only do the voting on all that, you only get like a certain number of points. So what they actually did was they did a picture gallery. So, people could post pictures of themselves in their costumes with their colleagues, pictures of the event itself. So it ended up kind of becoming an activity feed of the event itself, where you could go in and see all the photos of the event, and people could vote and get points for voting as well. So you can see that, that's really driving all of the prizes. And at the end, people could redeem prizes using the points that they gathered on the platform. So that's just a quick demo of, how can you actually gamify something such as a dinner and dance.
Hey, Prapi, maybe you could show who is currently leading on the leaderboard.
Okay, so I'll just show you how the game's going so far. So there's the leaderboard. So we actually used this game for session 2 as well. I think some of you who were here 2 weeks ago, you probably have a chance to have more points because you were here. Okay, I'm leading actually. So I think please beat me, because the reason that I'm leading is because I actually went in and I put my answers for everything just to test the game. So that means that clearly there are a lot of people who can please beat me. Yeah. So I'm not the top of the leaderboard. So that's.
Prapi, I'm removing you from the project.
Okay, so Keith is actually removing me. So once he tells me that he's done, I'll refresh and I'll see that I'm gone. So it's actually as easy as that as well, to be able to kind of modify things on our platform.
Yeah, I've been removed.
Okay, so goodbye, 500 points. Yep, so now she knows. And so you can see there's all time, meaning that ever since the beginning of this game, this game is 2 weeks old. But if you're talking about this month or today, then Regine is leading with the most points today. So we can use this one as the more accurate gauge for how people are doing today.
Okay, I think we can move on with our 4 other case studies. I hope everyone is still with us. We apologize that it has been rather dry so far, but the truth of the matter is gamification design is really very much, it's as dry as any IT implementation, really, right? And there's also a lot of psychological aspect and science that we need to get involved with. Prapim, are you covering this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Just help chip in, I think, if you need. Okay, so this was a project that was live until very recently. So this is actually sales training. I think one of you asked about sales training earlier, because that's what you want to use for your use case. Hopefully this is kind of interesting for you, as well as kind of on what's what went well and what can be improved. So essentially, this was for a handphone reseller, and it was for all employees. Not all employees only, but people who are salespeople within the company, but also non-employees who are selling this particular phone brand. So handphone shop sales assistants and resellers. So one thing that they really identified was that, you know, product updates and customer service updates are really, you know, it changes very quickly. So how they choose to market the product and like things such as even like recalls and all that need to be updated very quickly. But how they were doing it was, you know, through the company emails, newsletters, which is not very timely. And then another thing that they realized also was that, you know, the trainers were WhatsApping them through WhatsApp groups and then kind of testing them through there. So it was very unstandardized, and you know, it was very difficult for them to see how well people were doing when everything's occurring on things such as WhatsApp as well. Another problem also was that they were holding a lot of the trainers doing things on site. So you can imagine the time and budget it took to organize all the trainers, send them over to the venue to train them on things that might be outdated even in 2 weeks' time. So they wanted something to kind of help with the timeliness of this. And then that's where SBA came in. So you can see actually who it is, but I'll just continue on to kind of what the type of challenges are on the platform. So a lot of it is very simple quiz and product knowledge, such as like, you know, what's the new features of this? But they also had a lot of things that they wanted to do to try and engage a lot of the target audience to be more emotionally invested in their selling. Because I think it's not one thing that they really, I think, identified is, you know, how can we get these salespeople to actually be invested and be actual advocates of the brand? So something like Apple, I think, you know, where you're also selling the brand rather than just the product. But in this case, they were just selling the product without the actual investment in it. So I think there were challenges where, you know, they don't just do memorization of the features, but also put that into practice. Take a photo of you and your teammates with the brand itself. Take a photo of the phone to show how it's waterproof by taking it underwater, for example. That's kind of like, you know, extra engagement. They also had a lot of like the scenario. So for example, you know, this person is this age and she is looking for something for her art project. What type of phone would you recommend her and why? And then the person would actually answer in similar to the standard challenge you saw, where it's a free text entry, and then the mentor and the trainer is able to assess them via the app itself. So this means that, you know, it's not occurring over WhatsApp. It's the information is able to be captured, and then they're able to assess and grade them accordingly. But it's also able to be done very quickly.
Probably my to chip in real quick. You can go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
So one of the I remember I was actually responsible for also implementing this project, and one of the most interesting challenge I've seen was to take a selfie of yourself with the phone under the water, right? So if you can see the value of such a challenge, right, it not only just reinforce the knowledge of the phone, right, when the players were actually doing that, when they put their phone into the water and take a selfie of themselves, right, it's also reinforcing the confidence in the product, and it's also making fun, interesting challenges along the way. So I felt like we actually do have some of these challenges to actually get. I think one of the challenge of the brand at one point of time is there's so many features, right? It's a very powerful phone, right? Galaxy phones are always very feature rich, but nobody could really, even the salespeople. I remember whenever I go up to any Samsung store, right? When I ask them about certain questions, right? Sometimes they will just recite it off like as if they were reading off a book, but they don't really completely understand what the feature is all about. So through this game, right, and through all the different challenges, they were actually able to learn about something by actually doing something, not just reading off the PDF file. So that is a very important use case of this particular case study.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to highlight for this was actually this had a really high number of completions, 4 million. It's like one of the highest to date on our own platform. So it's quite a well-performing project. So part of the reason is the rewards as well. So you can see, obviously, they like put all their own rewards. So this is where I want to talk a little bit more about the rewards as well, about how money can't buy. It's good to put a series of money can't buy, SAPS, but I can realize in this case that this is also quite enticing for them, but it's also very important to kind of design the points accordingly and then maybe refresh it once in a while as well. So the reason being was that similar to the Space Runner case study, people were actually saving up their points because they saw like, okay, this is actually what I really want and it's worth a lot of points. I need to really be able to do a lot of things to save up to get 310,000 points. And then the client would actually share with us that, oh, we actually don't have that product anymore. So like, what can we do? We don't want people to be like saving up to get 1 million points and find out that they don't actually have like a reward to be able to redeem. So we kind of brainstormed and the client actually came up with this, which I thought was really clever, was that, what was it? At the end of every 6 months, they would actually reset the points back to 0. But they also don't want it to be that people are demotivated, that their points are lost for nothing, like me just now with my negative 500 points. So what they proposed instead was that, they can redeem things such as lucky draws or chances. I think that you've seen on Grab before, sometimes they have those random, like, redeem this chance to win an iPhone for 10 points, and then you can redeem it as many times as you like to get more chances. Even though it's like, I always do those with the hope that I would get one, but I know in my heart it's quite unlikely. So I think that's what they told people, and they were like, okay, and you just redeem all your points to 0, because after this date we're going to reset it, and if we reset it, you're going to lose all the points, so you might as well just do that. So that's how they got people to actually like start earning and burning the points more, more efficiently than just saving up and hoping for that 1 million prize that is never going to come. Yeah. So they also had routine assessments. So someone in the chat also mentioned like, can you do team building totally offline? So this is where I would say that just because they had this app doesn't mean that they took everything completely offline. They actually still did have a lot of in-person assessments where the trainer would use the app to do the assessment rather than, thinking that this was a complete replacement for in-person assessments. I think that there's still value in those as well, because you're able to like do a lot of knowledge transfer on the spot. It's just that having the platform really helps because before, the trainers would have to bring in their own slides and everything, but now they know that, okay, as long as I have the app, I can just pull it up and train them on the spot, and then I can check all of their answers on the app straight away as well. So I always think it's good to have it as a supplement rather than, a complete replacement in a lot of these cases. Okay, so you can see for the numbers that 82% sales rep reported improvement in sales number. I think Keith has something to say here about maybe correlation and causation, where we did, I think if you guys know that salespeople, if you look at the Bartle's player type, right? We try to think of them more as killers, where they're quite competitive, especially I think when you realize with the point saving, they really want to be able to be the number one and get that prize, that's 1 million points as well. So we were having a conjecture that it's possible that people who are already very motivated happen to get on the game as well. So that's why we can't say with like complete 100% certainty that it was due to the app. But I did have an interview with the client later on. They said that it was much easier as well to be able to kind of have a centralized point where they can put all the learning and development content on the platform and completely take care of it, knowing that trainers can consult this app for the knowledge base, and then also be able to consolidate like all of the rewards and everything. And another thing was the reporting as well. So they always like pulled all the reports to ensure each month like which department in which country is doing the best, and then which ones are lagging behind. So yeah, data driven is also very important in a lot of these use cases.
Yeah, one of the profiles that we really focus on are highly motivated salespeople, right? If you're familiar with KL, right, we're talking about those salespeople in Loyat, for example, right? Loyat Plaza is like the sim lim of Singapore. In fact, one of the things we like to do when we do profiling is we actually give this profile a name itself. I'm not sure whether you can pull out the slide one day, right, Prapim, right, in future. But we call this profile Danny Zai, right? Zai is like a Cantonese word for a guy. And when we describe Danny, right, we describe him as someone who is in his early 20s, right? He likes to zeng, right? We use the term zeng means they like to modify their phones, likes to brag about his knowledge of the phones, right? And likes to always try out the new things. So one of the things that we wanted to do, that we actually did to promote and encourage usage, was that we will always share first-hand updates about the phones, about new products through the application itself. So these are highly motivated individuals, right? So other than the extrinsic motivation, right, they are also very intrinsically motivated when they know that they are somewhat like an ambassador. They are somewhat like a VIP ambassador, where they have it's a very special club called SBA that they're part of. So end of the day, right, always keep in mind you're building a community. It's not just, and you should treat all your employees as consumers as well. It's exactly the same, right? Whether or not you're catering to learners or customers, right? All humans are the same, right? When it comes to being motivated. Yeah. Thank you so much, Robin.
Yep. Okay. Do we have time for the rest of the case studies, or do you think we might need to?
I think we can maybe go through Game Lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Game Lead's another one. But I'll just give a bit of a background on this. This is still a live project that's going on. It's a little different nowadays. I'll share with you kind of how it is today as well, versus how it is in this particular case study. So some of you, I think, were asking about, education, especially for students, how we have done such case studies. So we've done this one. So it's for leadership and team building. So it's a core module offered in SMU. And then they wanted to kind of, have the problem engagement where, we want people to put their ideas of leadership and team building into practice, ensure that, they're actually learning the content, and not only learning the content and putting it into practice, but also doing it outside of the classroom setting as well, especially for something that's a little bit more soft skills like leadership and team building. So there's 177 students in this pilot run. So you'll realize that for a lot of the more successful use cases, it starts off with a smaller group, not like, the target Space Runner where it was 6,000 people, because as we said, it's always good to have like a test group, and then you can iterate it and improve it, and then you can, before you release it to more target audiences. Okay, so they didn't have a control group, which was one of the things that I think we wish that we could have improved on, because what they did instead was that they actually segregated the game into 4 different groups. So each one had a different TA, teaching assistant, and each of the TAs had their own approach in how they actually marketed or promoted and used the game with their particular students group. So administrators could see all 4 as well, while students, obviously group 1 couldn't see group 2 or group 3 or 4. Okay, what's LTV? Leadership and team building. So that's from Marcus's question there. Okay, so how it worked was over 9 weeks, they actually released 1 module a week according to their class curriculum. So for week 1, it would kind of be an introduction to leadership. And then as you get better and you get more skilled in the course, that's when the challenges start to become a little harder. There's more thought that needs to be put in because you're becoming more familiar with the challenges. So there's a lot of variety in how the challenges were. It's not just simple pop quizzes on what you learn, but also things like explaining why you think leaders are born or made. And also like even just, there's a team building aspect, which is a bit more fun. Things such as telling us one awesome weird thing about yourself, on onboarding per se. Also like taking a photo with 5 different people in your group, and then take a wacky photo. So you can see it's like, it's still fun. It's not like just purely, the tone of voice is not purely just very educational or, serious. So this was made with input from the TA themselves. So it wasn't just the professor or Gametize creating the content. They actually got the TAs who obviously would know their target audience better to also have a hand in creating the content, which I think contributed a lot to the success of, how well the games did as well. Okay, so you can see that there is activity feed, and then there's the submission and voting. So I think you'll start to realize that this is a common factor in a lot of our case studies where we're really trying to drive the community factor as well. So the reason we try to do that is because it's scalable as well, meaning that, people are more intrinsically motivated to actually come in and do all of this submissions, play the games when they know that, there's other people playing, they're having fun as well, being part of the game with others. Okay, so they also decided to also kind of log their participation here. So it's a way for them to keep track of attendance and what people are learning throughout. So a lot of kind of like knowledge checks and insight sharing.
Yeah, this is a very classical SMU element where you get points for asking questions in class, right? In fact, I think we are the first school to start that, and I was from SMU as well. So if we could go back to the previous slide, Prabhu, right? That particular element of class participation is they will ask the questions in class, and they will be able to log it into the platform, right? How they used to do it before was that when somebody asks a question in class, there will be a teaching assistant that puts a tick beside the attendance sheet and say, Keith has asked a question. Doesn't matter whether it's a good question or a bad question, right? But then in this platform, what happens is you could actually get additional points if people are voting on your questions as well. So I think it does bring the additional element of encouraging people to ask the right questions, right? And also good questions. Yeah. Okay, let's back to you, Prabhu.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a little more context on here because this is in the pop quiz. So in case you guys are doing the pop quiz. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, because I think my memory might be a little blank here. But okay, so what happened was that since each group had a different TA who decided to market the game in different ways, of course, some of them decided to make the group like slightly, one of them actually decided to make a game lead not mandatory at all. They actually explicitly stated like, this is not going to affect your points negatively or positively, no matter what you do in the app. It's just for fun. And then one of them, I think group 3 actually said, they left it vague. They didn't actually say like whether it would or wouldn't. So can you guess which group is the one that had the higher number of completions in the app? The one that had no, it's not going to affect them at all? Group 1? Or do you think it's group 3 where the TA left it deliberately vague whether it would actually affect their score at the end?
So group 1 says that it will affect your grades, and group 3 says that it will not affect your grades, right? Whatever you do over here. And actually, I think we could just, I think the answer is quite obvious over here, right? Actually, group 3, the ones that the audience that were told that it will not affect their grades were actually more engaged. So there's a little bit of economics happening over here, but if you think about that, it can make sense as well, right? The audience here are more motivated when they know that there will not be any punishment, right? They know that this is something that they can freely engage with, right? For group 1, right, it feels more like a homework, right? And obviously their level of participation was just strictly for the sake of earning the points. But group 3 was more intrinsically motivated. Of course, I'm not saying that this is going to be the case all the time, right? But one of the little tweaks that we did over here is with the points they earned in all the projects, they actually able to change their presentation slots. I remember very clearly that if you have enough points, you're able to move forward your presentation or move backwards your presentation, right? It's a reward that money cannot buy. So actually, probably I can take on the rest of the slide, and then I will transition towards the final case study, right? I think we are definitely going to have a spillover, right?
Okay, thankfully we didn't create the challenge on whether this would overrun or not. So yeah.
Yeah, just for the
for the prediction.
Yeah, for predictions, we didn't create that because see, we knew we didn't create it because we knew it would.
So we are going to just wrap up the game lead. Later on, we will be covering 2 more case studies. However, these 2 are going to be much faster and quicker because they are more focused on recruitment. So not so much L&D, but still a HR function, right? So and we feel like there's some elements of that can help with doing L&D gamification design. All right, so so some of the students really like the video elements, right? We find that the target audience is very much very engaged by visuals and videos and very, very fast moving content, right? Next slide. Yeah. And you can see that they also, so these are some of the numbers that we have, right? In fact, the school has done so well. They have won a lot of awards with this particular campaign. And today, I think this is a 5th year that they're still using us, right? For actually more than just LTV. Okay, let's just move on. And I think I will just screen through the rest of the numbers slides. I just want to go to the conclusion slide, Robin. Okay, so one of the key things to take away from here is always focus on the problem statement, right? And the objective. Now, if we were to measure the campaign with any other factors like is this really helpful for the students? Is this really interesting for the students? That would not be a fair assessment. The problem statement here was, right, the professor wanted to find a way outside of the classroom to continue to engage the students because she found that there was a disconnect, and this campaign solved that problem, right? And of course, the next thing I want to talk about is there should be a lot of iterative development and improvement. My favorite, one of my favorite takeaways from this particular project is the content were mostly developed by the teaching assistants. And this is a very important aspect, right? Because the teaching assistants are the ones that really understood the students. They are the ones that really understood their target audience. And through a collaboration between the professor and the teaching assistant, right, they were able to create a meaningful experience that can engage the target audience. All right, so with that, right, I think what we can do right now is we can take a 3 minutes break, right? Everyone can do your quizzes and do whatever survey. Jilin can do your wrap up.
Yes.
For those that needs to is able to spare 10 more minutes until 5:10, right? We will be able to cover 2 more case studies in 10 minutes for sure.
Okay, so for those who need to leave soon, maybe you can just go to this link I've pasted in the chat. If you have some 10 minutes to spare, just join us for the next 2 case studies. Very eye-opening. I've learned a lot myself. Thank you for sharing.
Next 2 are more for recruitment and talent acquisition. So it's a little different. So yeah, if you'd still like to learn a little bit more on how we've done that, then yeah, please feel free to stay.
Yeah, the 2 case studies that we are covering is one of them is about a bank and the other one is a FMCG brand. And both of them, one is for internship, right? It's a mixture of internship and some kind of certification program, and the other one is more like a virtual travel around the world storyline. So we thought like we wanted to, L&D is really super interesting for a lot of us here, but I think it's good to also learn from other types of implementations. I believe the quizzes and the challenges are published already.
Yep. So I'll just put the link here so you guys can go to there and then just complete the quizzes. You can get some points. So just to let you know what the rewards are. Okay.
Gongcha voucher.
I think no chance for bubble tea for the next.
Not so soon, yeah.
Not so soon, yeah. So there is a chance to visit the Gametize office in 2021, hopefully, not guaranteed. And that's not an actual photo of our office, by the way. But we are happy to show you if you're very curious. There's also the chance to win the Gametize tea. So there's an article here where you can kind of look a little bit more about the examples here. So we're, so these are examples of SAPS rewards. This is the stuff, something that's easy to get. I guess if you have money, then technically you could buy it as well. It's like a swag. You can see Keith is wearing the shirt right now, modeling it for us. Yeah, then something like the visit to Gametize office actually doesn't cost any money, but it's similar to the Ninja Quest example where someone will take you around the office, maybe will make you a cup of coffee. So it's like a nice experience that you wouldn't be able to buy. So that's kind of like an access reward as well. Then maybe like later on, we could create like another reward, 1 hour chat with the Gametize team. That would be another example of SAPS reward as well.
Okay, I think we can move on to the final 2 case studies. Actually, Jiling, are you able to make me a host again so I can do screen sharing?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
And so Prapin can take a break off a MacBook.
Okay, you're our co-host now.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I'll just stop share then.
Okay, if you're still with us, please just give a shout out. Okay.
You can type hello in the chat, wave if your camera's on.
Great. All right. So let me just take the next 10 minutes to run through this. Okay. The very first one is Hawa Badado, right? This is actually Hindi, right? For Stop Don't Wait, I believe, right? It was a campaign that was done by a brand called NBPL, right? So NBPL, as you are aware, is part of the P&G group. This was a project that also was quite a while back. I think at least 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, but it's also a case study I like to talk about a lot. One of my, because of the way it's being designed, right? It's done by a marketing agency, right? So that's the one of the rare projects done by a marketing agency for employer branding / recruitment. So Hawa Badado was designed for the Indian market, right? And it is a campaign where students will be able to go through this application process. And when they went through this application process, they would be able to potentially get a real job internship in Kuala Lumpur. So you can see this reward is a very, very big prize for, especially if you are in India, right? The chance to travel as a very young individual, right? It's always very enticing, right? So the very first challenge that they will be asked to do, right, really is just to accept the challenge, read the terms and conditions, very simple. You can see on the right side, these are some of the rewards that's available, right? You have a virtual business card, you have a certificate of merits. I love certificate of merits, right? They cost nothing, right? It means everything to a lot of people. And we also have the CV guidance ebook, right? And we also have the free charge vouchers, which is their mobile data plan voucher. Okay, so as you can see, there's also, these are the guaranteed rewards. As long as you do every challenge here, you will get all of these rewards over here, right? A mixture of things that money can buy and money cannot buy. Now, the big rewards are the ones that actually give out real cash, right? First paycheck. In fact, I think this is, if I'm not wrong, this was an Amazon voucher, right? The second big reward over here was a lunch with a P&G marketer. And the third one is finally, if you have earned 50,000 points, you would be able to finally get an interview for the Malaysia internship program. All right. And so these are the different challenges they have, right? Some of them, the very first challenge or very first 2 challenges are so simple to do, right? You just have to answer this question: what is your favorite aroma? So you can see this is a very easy onboarding challenge, right? You don't have to spend too much time on it. The second challenge is a survey, right? You just have to answer this very quickly. And the third one actually has a referral element, right? So if you refer your friends to come into the game, right, you will get additional points. Fourth one is a really super, I would call this a very tricky one, because it actually requires you to persuade your friends to actually do selling. Sorry, it actually requires you to sell something to your friends by persuading your friends to buy NBPL products, right? when they bought them, right, they will pass you their receipts and you will be able to upload and earn additional points. So I thought this was quite interesting, right? It's not so much, it's not a regular kind of challenge that you see in an internship program. The next question is about you asking a really good question, and the question will be answered by Ms. Sonali Dawan, right? She's the marketing director of P&G. So there you go, that's a newsfeed, right? And this is the leaderboard. If you remember just now, right, Prabim talked about fatalist effect, right? This is a particular project where we were very mindful of the fatalist effect because there were more than 20,000, about 15,000 participants, right? So it's very easy for you to be very demotivated if you see that you are 20,000 points away from catching up with the very first person. That's why I'm not able to see the points for the top 3%, but I'm able to see my rank, right? To see my rank just now, it was 851. And I will be able to, I will be able to see who is right above me. And again, these are the rewards that are already available, right? And that's it, right? So this is this particular project has about 20,000, 15 to 20,000 participants, right? One of the reasons why it got so viral was actually because of this particular challenge, the referral aspect. So do not underestimate the power of referrals, right? Even if you were to introduce a challenge to get your fellow learners, the target audience, to bring in more people to learn about the campaign that you have designed, right? That could potentially be a challenge on its own that you can reward points for them, right? So referral marketing, right, works very well in many different aspects, not just for marketing campaigns, right? It can be used for getting additional eyeballs and traffic for your learning campaigns. End of the day, right, your learning campaign is only as effective as the number of people that actually consumes any knowledge from it. So this is something that you could implement for future projects. Now, the next case study, right, which we'll cover in the next 5 minutes, is Journey Around Asia. Right, so this is an MA program where this particular bank, right, will use, will create a gamification campaign to get more than to get more than 3,000 candidates around the world, right, especially Asia, to actually join in. I remember that when I worked with this particular client, right, they have more than 20,000 employees in the world. However, for talent acquisition, right, the team is just 2%, right? So it is impractical for them to vet through every single candidate, right? So they wanted to create some form of a campaign to do some kind of filtering, right, through their candidates playing some kind of games. At the same time, right, there's a huge element of employer branding happening here as well. So rather than it being just a very boring job interview, right? If you remember just now for Hawa Badado, right? It's definitely not a boring internship application process, but it is actually an internship application process. So likewise over here, this is an MA application process. And that's the profile that we did, right? We managed to find out there's a John and there's an Amy, right? So usually we tend to have at least 2 to 3 profiles so that we are able to customize and localize our content. And we would do focus group, we'll talk to these users. Use this opportunity when you're talking to the focus group users to try to get new ideas from them. Ask them what kind of game ideas do they like, what kind of exciting solutions they would like to see, right? That's where you can actually think about how you can design your campaigns. And over here, we kind of realized that, you know, sometimes when we do this profiling, we learn that, okay, these personalities or this profile really like using certain applications like Instagram, right? And then we try to make sure that, okay, how can we make the whole experience feels more like an Instagram experience? So there were 2 portions to this particular campaign, right? The first one is one that they will be able to travel around the world, right? Let me see whether I have this screenshot. So you can see that over here, right? They will be able to travel to India, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Indonesia, right? They can go to any cities they want to. And when they go into those cities, right, they will be answering questions like that. Let me see, where's the sample questions? All right, I don't think we have the sample questions, but oh, this is one of them, right? Some of the questions also revolves around like asking how many Malayans are there in Singapore, right? And just to create some kind of icebreaker experience, so that the players do not feel like this is just a job interview about the company all the way, right? So it creates an element of freshness and deviation. All right, so after answering these questions, right, end of the day, right, they will get a badge. So you can see that the narrative over here is a passport. After you travel to Singapore, you get a chop on your passport, right? And after you have come to Singapore, right, you'll be able to unlock the next city, right? The next city was actually Indonesia. Okay, right after you answer all the 6 cities, right, go to the 6 cities, there will be a special quest in the middle of the ocean that will be unlocked, right? So this is where the psychometric element comes in, right? So there was a kind of SJT, I rephrase, right? It's not psychometric. This was a situational judgment test assessment, right? To try to capture some data about the profile to see whether there's a good fit in terms of their SJT performance with the company's values as well.
Yeah, because if you see the options there, you actually see all of them are quite reasonable, and none of them seem particularly right or wrong. And that was on purpose, actually, in this case. So what this was it actually judged how closely the candidates kind of approach or management style aligned with the actual employees that answered this question. So in a way, it's like the closer they answered to the actual existing management team, then the higher they were ranked on like this bell curve, essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as you can see, we have run through quite a lot of case studies today, right? We encourage you to feel free to connect in with us. If you have any questions, right, please feel free to just ask in the chat. If you need to leave the room, please feel free to do so. If not, please feel free to re-engage with me and Prapim. Let me just put up the slides. I just want to give a shout out to Ling, right? Thank you for setting this up for us, right? It's a lot of work,
Thank
a lot
you.
of yeah, a lot of
Thank
marketing as
you,
well.
Team Gametize. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Prapim, right, for setting up all the slides and decks, and also the pedagogy as well, right? Prapim is not really trained in instructional design, but she was able to adapt very quickly, right? To create this kind of pedagogy for all of you, right? I think one of the biggest reason is how she can do it is she does a lot of testing. We do a lot of testing, and that is my final recommendation for you, right? Always do a lot of different iterations, do a lot of testing for gamification design, right? Just feel free to run right into me and Prapim, right? Most importantly, right, if you want the slides, go to academy@gametize.com. Just
yeah.
the deck.
I can just share my screen for a bit also, just to show the last slide. Okay, so yeah, I think just to wrap up, as Keith said, feel free to connect with me and Keith by email. You can also email into, okay, before I show any of these, feel free to email in at academy@gametize.com to get the slide decks. That way we can email it to you directly from there. What we're also going to do is that we're going to make this recording available on YouTube in maybe about 2 weeks' time, and then if you want the link to that, just email in also, and then I'll take note of that, and then we'll send it to you later on when that's available. In the meantime, I know a lot of you asked for more live demos. So I think that what you can do is actually go to gametize.com/templates. So although these look quite generic, they are actually based a lot on some of the use cases that we've worked with, where we've taken the game that we've created and we've just sanitized it and put it on there. So a lot of these are actually tested in a way. So feel free to look at that. You can kind of create a template and then start playing around with it for your use case. There's a lot of random use cases as well, not just like the usual code of conduct kinds, but there's also marketing, the dinner and dance template is also on there. So I think this is good for you guys to have a more practical, feel of it. Nothing beats at the end of the day actually being able to, have the practical usage and application. Okay, so I think that most of you are probably really familiar with a lot of the resources that we put here. We actually also asked you to share a few resources in the game with us. But I think all of you are content creators who recognize stock music when you hear it. So this is just for you guys to take away as well for content creation. And I've actually also created a coupon code for you to use afterwards. So just to let you know that there's a free trial of our platform, which you can sign up for straight away. And actually, if you also want to extend the trial, once again, feel free to get in touch with us at academy@gametize.com. We're definitely happy to extend the trial for you if you find that you need a bit more time to create the content that you need. And then I think lastly, we do have a certification program, which is kind of still a work in progress, but essentially we run these type of sessions as well. More for your use cases, maybe you need training, or maybe just or a bit of a refresher on gamification, in which case you can just visit this link, or like I said, email in to us as well. And lastly, I think if there's any questions, I think there were a lot of questions which we didn't manage to answer today, because the chat, I'm really glad that you guys are really engaged and have a lot of questions, but unfortunately that also means that we didn't get the opportunity to be able to answer everything. So if you find that we didn't answer your questions and you still want to know the answers, email into academy@gametize.com. We'll be happy to answer them for you there. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Lim. And I just want to remind everybody, if you have any ideas to collaborate with us on, right, we are happy to brainstorm together, and also to see whether it is something that we can work on together, right? Like I say, content development, all right, to us in Gametize, technology is always the simple, it's a simpler implementation, right? Content development is the one that is much, much more challenging. So again, give yourself a pat on the back for being content developers, right? And you guys have done amazing.
Maybe I can just add and express my gratitude to the team Gametize, for spending, I think we are close to 1 month now. I think our first session was 14th May. So every 2 weeks we have one session. So really thank you so much for your generous sharing and for all the freebies you're giving out. Thank you. and the games we created, it's so fun. Yeah, I see a virtual
do you want to talk about the in-lab festival that's happening soon?
That one is not really okay. We have in-lab festival that's in October. That yeah, so that will be celebrating our in-lab's birthday, like we shared in the last session. If anybody can remember how old is in-lab, you can type in the chat. So in October we'll be celebrating our how many birthday? Yes, thank you, Marcus.
Okay, Marcus.
5th birthday.
I think we should ban Marcus from answering, because he always answers correctly and quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to say no. Sorry, no prize. Yeah. So we'll be having some celebrations. So now we're in the planning stage, and we'll release more details soon. So check out our IAL Facebook page for upcoming events, and also we'll be working together with maybe Gametize for future events as well. So future collaborations, definitely. Yeah.
We are taking part in the festival as well. So we will unveil more information later on, right?
Nice.
How
yeah. Oh yeah, you're talking about the Adult Learning Symposium. Yes.
Yes,
okay, so that yes, correct. Okay, so yeah, Adult Learning Symposium. Yeah. So first time we are doing it live, fully online, and it's in August, 13th to 14th August. And of course, we have Gametize as one of our partners as well. So we'll be very happy to be collaborating with them. So if you like, let me just pass you the link. Just a minute. You can check out this page. Okay. So first time we are doing it live, fully online. Please do check it out. Yeah,
I think in-lab to create an advocacy club. In-labs advocates, they will be earning points for talking about in-labs for getting all the quizzes correct.
Yeah, every time you say in-lab once, you get 10 points.
Jiling, that's the name of the lady. Jiling, yeah. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe, right? Healthy. Thank you for joining with us.
Yep. Thank you for
So keep
taking
a
the
lookout.
time. Yep. To
Yes.
join us.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.